Well, if you're watching this, then I guess you already know. I picked up another bike. And she's in smashing shape. Anyway, this one I could at least ride home. I guess the front wheel could use a little help, but I think it's salvageable. Front forks, a little spaghetti-y, but I think they'll buff out. It is a sport bike, so it has full fairing. All that stuff's in great shape. Just gonna give her a little wax, put it right back on. So I think that's all we need. Just a little bit of wax, buff out the paint job, and she'll be ripping again. So anyway, welcome to Provin's Garage. So if you're wondering why in the world I would buy such a incredible pile of shit, well, it's actually not that much of a pile of shit. Front end obviously smoked, but from here back is pretty good. And I'm really into unique engines. Clearly I'm going to build something out of this. It's not going to turn back into a bike ever again. But this isn't just your ordinary sport bike, kind of like the motor for Amerikart, which is a V-twin 1000 superbike engine. This, instead of being an inline 4 or a V-twin, is a 3-cylinder, inline 3-cylinder, 955cc engine. This is a Triumph Daytona. Don't see a lot of them. They sound really cool, and I think this will make a really good wheelie cart. So that's what I'm going to do. For right now, I still have the forks off of the TL1000, so I think I'm going to try to pull these off, see if I can get those forks to fit, and then I'll be at least able to roll this thing around. Because right now it doesn't really roll so well with the whole perpendicular front wheel. So I'm going to work on that, and then we're going to work on seeing if this thing will run. Well, as you can see, I really forked this one up. So, turns out the TL1000 forks pretty much fit. They were close enough that I was able to get them on here, and they hold on and they don't have any like wobble. It's kind of a combination of the bearings from the TL1000 and the bearings from this 955i Triumph. And so it's going to work enough for me to at least roll around the garage. So the only other thing that I see, right off the bat that's going to cause a little bit of an issue with firing this thing up is in the wreck, it must have smashed the tire into the side of the oil cooler and broke the line off and the fitting off. But I think I have a solution for that. So after about, 3 minutes of research on the internets, buying a new factory oil cooler for this bike is about $400. And I cannot find a used one. I can find a used one for the older version of the Triumph Daytona pretty easily, but apparently everyone hoards the newer version of the Triumph Daytona 955. So I couldn't find one used. And my next option was to, fit up something different. Something else that's an oil cooler that will do the same job. Just might mount a little differently, or I might have to make some brackets. But I don't plan on keeping this thing a bike. It's going to turn into a ridiculously fast wheelie cross kart. So I went ahead and purchased this off Amazon. It was like $50 compared to $400. I think that's a little bit better of a deal. But these things have their own little flanges, not any type of banjo fitting or AN fitting. So these are the oil lines that run from the engine to the cooler. Like I said, one flange already broke off, and I have that here. So what I'm thinking is I can probably just drill and tap this to fit one of these little guys. Well, actually it started off looking like that. I'll cut the end off of this, and then thread this into here, and that should allow me to connect some AN fittings to this new oil cooler. So if that doesn't work, I do have a plan B, and that's basically just to weld these together. This is aluminum, this is aluminum. I should be able to make it seal without a problem. and then we'll have an oil cooler, and then we can see if this thing will fire up. Alright, let's see if this will go in and act like it's going to seal. So one thing I noticed right off the bat is these little fittings have a little bit of a step right there on the nut side of the thread, and I may have to counterbore this a little bit. So if you look there, there's a little gap. So I'm going to take a measurement and see if I have a counterbore that'll work for this. We should be able to get it to work. So as the video evidence shows, my Chinesium counterbore set is not exactly the most precise instrument. Had quite a bit of wobble to it, but it worked. So if you're going for really high precision, spend a little more money. This thing wasn't super duper cheap, but I mean, you saw the thing wobble. It's clearly not high quality stuff. But if you're not going for super high precision, you just want it to work, it worked. So I think now with the gasket, we can seal this baby up nice and tight, and it shouldn't leak. We're going to find out one way or the other, so let's do it. Well, if you have a keen eye, you'll notice this thing's more taken apart than it was before. I should be trying to start it up right now, but, well, I went and put my oil cooler on, and that's fine. The lines are a little long, but, you know, a wise man once told me you can always make it shorter, but you can't make it longer. So I can take some out of those lines if I want to, but I don't plan on this engine staying in the bike for a really long time after I get it running. So I started putting oil in it, and then the oil started coming back out, and I was like, wait a minute, it's got new lines on it. How's that? What's it? Oh, what? Son of a... The oil pan's cracked. So that was really hard to notice when I went to look at the bike, and even as I started working on it, you know, there was still some fairing on it when I went to look at it, and didn't think anything about it until I started putting oil in it, and it just decided it wanted to come back out. So I got to get the oil pan off. I got a new one coming, but I figure I might as well get some practice trying to repair an aluminum oil pan. I know I got another one coming. So I might as well see if I can weld this one up. So to get it off, I have to take the exhaust off. And the bolts looked a little rusty. So I sprayed it up with some old Big Shot. And I sprayed it up a couple times, let it soak overnight, and they just came right out. So everything's nice and loose. I'm going to pull the exhaust off. I'm going to get that oil pan off and have a better look at it. And have a little look at the bottom end, make sure nothing else is cracked. I looked at the case of the motor, and fortunately, it appears as though that is all in good shape still. I'll get a better look at it once I get this pan off. Well, I don't think that's going to hold oil. So, unfortunately, I only have one piece, however this goes on here. And I don't have the chunk that has the bolt hole. So it's going to be interesting to try to fix this, but yeah, maybe I'll try it anyway. I don't know. I also don't have a gasket, so maybe I won't. But good thing is the case is not cracked. This bolt got bent, but the only part that was still in the case was actually still straight. So I was able to take it out. The threads are fine. The engine case is fine. So with a used oil pan, it should be good to go. All right, well, I finished fixing up the old oil pan, the one that was broke, and it probably would have worked fine. But then the new to me oil pan showed up today, which was like 4 days earlier than I expected. So obviously I'm just going to use this one, and I'll keep the other one as a backup. So the only thing now that's keeping me from trying to fire this thing up is the gasket, and apparently it's not possible to find one of those in stock anywhere. So I've ordered one, but who knows when it's going to show up. So being the impatient guy that I am, I want to see if this thing will run. So I went ahead and did the old dirty finger trace trick, and I'm going to make my own gasket, put some oil in it, see if it'll run. So hold tight, let's see what happens. Well, we got a gasket. Everything seems to line up pretty nicely, so I'm going to get her installed, put the exhaust back on, and we're going to give this thing a go. All right, we got her oiled up. Nothing on the floor, so that's pretty good. I think I got everything hooked up, so I'm going to see if it'll fire up. Fuel pump is kicking on. Oh yeah, so I put the exhaust on, but I didn't really put the silencer on because I like to party. So there it is. She runs.